Too often we focus just on the ankle, which is okay if you got a lack of ankle mobility, but we can't forget about the foot. A lot of our testing talks about the foot and the ankle. A lot of our exercises do the foot and ankle. In this little video, I'm going to show you a couple ways to test it, as well as some targeted exercises that work on the foot. So a lot of the activities you see us go through here at FMS involve the ankle and ankle mobility. But believe me, a lot of those activities involve the foot. So if you've got a foot problem, some of those activities, especially with the mobility flow you see here on YouTube with Gray, that can definitely be addressed. But specifically, if we want to talk about the foot, in case the foot is flattening out, one of the ways we have to first look at that is through testing. And when we do our ankle mobility testing, that's one reason we get you in this inline position. So if you're going to test ankle mobility, you've got to account for what's happening at the foot and the knee. So when I get into this inline position, I want to see if my knee can go in the front of my malleolus. So that tells me whether I've got limited ankle mobility, but because I'm in this inline position, if I get limited, it could be because my foot doesn't have good mobility or is actually in a more flattened state in that position. So we've got to have good foot mobility once we get in this inline. So we're really checking both ankle and foot mobility. So if you think a person has a foot mobility or stability problem, I'm going to go through a couple things. But once I've looked at mobility, a real quick, easy thing to follow right that up with is doing our motor control screen, which is in essence seeing how far I can push this box, or how far can I reach out in front of me and then come back. And you should be able to basically reach your foot out 2 times your foot length. So I check my foot and ankle mobility here, and then I go right and check the stability here. If I've got a mobility problem, go ahead and check this stability as well, or motor control. Because really what we're looking for is feedback. I want to know, did the activities I do address my test? So screening movement patterns, don't just think of it as the first thing you do, think of it as a way to get feedback. So if I've got some limitations, the first thing I'm going to do is start at my toes. So if I've got limitations, and if I stand on one foot and you see me collapse down, my foot's not doing what it needs to do. That could be a motor control problem. Still can pick it up right there, right? But if my ankle is limited, I still may not have the proprioceptive feedback. So let's start, and where a lot of people don't start, is just with the toes. And just get your toes and go into extension, really reach back, really stretch those toes out, and then do some flexion. And then really sweep those toes back. If you pass those tests, no reason to do that. Too often my question I get is, hey Leah, I don't really feel much. Well, if you don't feel sometimes certain things, it may be not because the exercise is not appropriate, it may not be appropriate for you. So I'm not gonna do some of these activities if I do well on the test I just showed you. So that's why it's important to get that baseline. Set the baseline so you have targeted exercises. But get these toes moving, flexion and extension. Now here's where I'm going to get the midfoot, or this part of the foot that we want to address if it's flat, or if we really got a little bit of stability problem there, meaning it kind of goes into this position too often. Well, I want to create that arch, and I've got to have good mobility in order to create that arch, but I've got to use motor control. So it's a yin and yang. Mobility and stability always go together. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this foot and flip it over, place it right over the top part of my foot here, the highest point. And all I'm going to do, as you see me balance, this is more of a foot activity, is I'm just going to spread my knees out. And as I spread my knees out, you'll see my toes start to grab the ground, and my foot will start to create that arch. Now what I'm doing with this top foot is I'm creating a barrier, and that barrier is actually creating a little bit of mobilization, really focusing more on what's happening at my midfoot. So here, so go up, spread those knees out, I go down, grab the foot with the ground, and that's what the foot should do. Act like the hand. The more you grab with the hand, the better it sends a signal up to create proximal stability. And that's what the foot do. What's proximal? It's your hip, it's your core. So if my foot flattens out, knee caves in, everything up that kinetic chain is going to be disengaged. It's not going to be activated. So the foot influences a lot of what's going on with the rest of the kinetic chain. Everybody talks about the hip. You got to get to that foot just as much. So here, foot on top, spread the knees, grab the ground, can flip it and do the other side, spread those knees out, grab the ground with my foot. Actually, I get a little cramp on this side as opposed to the other side, which tells me maybe I need to do a little bit more on this foot. Now from here, I'm gonna follow it up. And remember, we added the ankle into it, the foot and the ankle. We gotta get everything. Remember, we're all about patterns here at FMS, movement patterns, not just isolating out one area. So we have to put it all together. So I can use the band here to cave this knee in. So I'm gonna spread it out to get a little resistance here on the band. The band's caving my knee in. My knee goes out. What happens at my foot? So my foot, again, does the same thing you saw me do earlier. It grabs the ground. Now I can go forward, get a little bit of ankle, a little bit of foot. Now I got foot, ankle, knee, hip all aligned, and I don't have to have a lot of influence, a lot of cueing on my part if I'm the professional. Just wrap that band, let the band do its job, cave that knee in. Reflex stabilization, reactive neuromuscular training tells me I gotta kick that knee out. I kick that knee out, and now I can go forward. Now I'm getting a little bit more. Now I'm not just getting the foot, I'm getting the ankle, knee, and hip all involved at this point. Now I gotta put it all together. What's a good way to put it all together? Still making it more of a foot and ankle biased activity. I'm gonna do what I would call a deep knee bend. Now I'm gonna use my stick here to start, and I'm gonna get a half roll. I'm just gonna do a deep knee bend. Basically a squat, but I'm gonna let my heels stay off the ground. So I've got my feet up, using my stick to start, to give me a little balance, and just find a comfortable position. Go and do a little heel raises, let those toes do their job, let the foot do its job, and once I feel comfortable, I'm just gonna go ahead and go into a squat. You see my heels are up, which is forcing more stability, more motor control in my foot. So this deep knee bend is a great activity for the foot and the ankle, more of a bias for the foot and the ankle. Now you'll say, well, Lee, my heels are up. Well, by having your heels up, you may not think you're getting that ankle and even you're working on mobility, but you're working motor control and stability, which motor control and stability help create mobility. We gotta have mobility first in order to set the stage. But once you gain mobility, you've gotta add some stability to it so that the joints are being placed in the right position as you go through an entire movement pattern. So now we're using the foot and the ankle and focus a little bit more on the foot. So we always talk about the ankle sometimes in my opinion, maybe too often. A lot of what we do is always combining both, but showing you here just a few extra things you can do if you think you got a little bit more of a foot problem. If you like this video on the foot and ankle, check out this video.